Hello sewers, today I'd like to share with you a new block, well new to me anyway, that I've been trying, called the Interwoven Star. So I've tried out a few to figure out the best way to make it so I can share it with you, and these are a couple of my samples. I've tried out one with just 2 colours here, you don't have to have 4 different ones, and a patterned background, and I've also tried out this one with 4 different colours, and it might look tricky, but actually I think this is one that even a confident beginner can tackle. Now I've made up some packs that will be in the shop for you to try if you want to try one, and this is what will be in your pack. You'll have a picture of what it will look like when you're finished. You'll have the set out, and you'll have the sewing instructions. You'll also have full-size templates of the pieces, so you can lay them out and make sure they're turned the right way round. You'll have 4 of D, 4 of C, which are these background ones, and then you'll have 4 star pieces of B and A, and all of that will be in the pack for you, and they're available at Sewer's Delight now. So I'm going to sew one whole block for you today to show you how easy it is. Now, first of all, as I always say, lay out your block, follow it. If you think about all your points, they all point to the corners, and then from there you lay in your D's, your C's and your A's. Your A's, as you can see, finish that point. What you can do is you can actually chain piece all of your CADs. So, and then when you've got them chain pieced, you can lay them back and then go around and add the next piece. But I'm going to sew this whole block so you can see how easy it is to do. And as I go, I'll give you the instructions that I worked out were the best. So first of all, pick up all your D's, put them all next to each other, and you can use your template to make sure you've got them the right way round. Then pick up all your A's, and you can see how they fit together there, just making sure they're the right way. And then you can leave your C's just for now. You can put them all together if you like, ready. And we're going to do all of these first. So we're going to chain piece D and A together. Now, rather than have the big one on top, I like the small one on top, so I'm just going to flip that. And I'll just put this over a little bit. Excuse me. So that, if I didn't move that camera, I might move this one for the time being. Okay, so there's all my A's, there's all my D's, and they're going to go together like that. I'll just turn my iron on to warm it up. So we're just going to line them up, the notches are cut off, and we're going to run them all through. 1/4 inch seam as always. I'm not sure what's happening there. I think I must have had a bit of a mash up. Always annoying when that happens. Right, let's check that. Okay, that's alright. We can just pull that out with our finger. Not sure why that happened. And the next one. So you have 4 sets of these. The block is made up in quarters. And you don't have to use dark as your outside one. You can go light, and you can use darker colours on the inside. But what you need to actually show this star up is contrast. in the colour, or if not the colour, then the actual depth of colour. So you could do it all in the same colour, but various shades. Now you can use it with scraps, but you need reasonable size scraps. And I made sure when I cut these that I cut them all on the straight of grain, even though that does use more fabric. But I wanted to make sure that you don't have a problem with things being stretched out of shape. So that's my first 4 sewn. So I was very careful to make sure that everything went through on the straight. Now we just need to snip those apart. At this stage we don't need to worry about sorting them. And today I've done what I often do when I'm chain piecing and made a little bit of an extra block on the go. This is your flippy corners that you cut off. I don't know what it'll be, but sometimes I just like to play. So as usual, I'm going to quickly just set those seams. Just turn that steam off. And then I'm going to open each seam. For this part, we want to iron our seams open. And the reason is we have a few seams that cross over, so if we iron them open, or press them open we should say, because we are pressing, we will have flatter seams. Now I'm going to put them all back together again because I want to make sure that I have the right orientation when I add my C piece. And normally I do take up a bit more space, making sure I've got all those bits there, because I don't usually iron here, but we need the ironing space today. Right, now to make sure I've got the orientation right, I'll put my little board back here. There's my C piece, and you can obviously see it's not going to go that way. I need to flip it back around again, and it's not going to go like that. The bottom has to be straight, so work it round, and then you see that and that go together. So now I'm going to flip over that onto the A, and I'll just move that out of the way again, keeping those points in the centre. And now this C piece is going to join to the AD piece. And again, we can chain piece. Now, I like to start at the top here where there's no seam. So I'm just going to flip them as I go and do them that way, just when I match up that corner with no seam. I prefer it that way. So again, we're chain piecing, 1/4 inch seam. That means don't take any out, just keep going. They're all straight seams. So even if you're a beginner watching this, as long as you keep your layout and as long as you keep your 1/4 inch seam, you'll have a good result. And I've also worked out the best pressing for you as well. And it's a big block. The finished size is 12, so you've got a fair size block straight away. It would be good for a cushion, if you want to make a quilt, of course. You could mix it with other blocks. You could use it for a bag. I would quilt it up first before I put it on the bag. Right, and that's all our side pieces now. So you can see it's pretty quick. Might be even quicker if I didn't talk so much, I'm not sure. So again, I like to set those seams, and I do that because you do get a better finish. And we're going to press this seam open as well. To begin with, they're all open. So use your fingers, your nails, whatever you've got there. Spread that out. And you can see now we've got that straight line happening. I'm hoping I didn't move my camera when I banged the table there before. And we're going to put them back together just for the time being. It doesn't take very long to press them. Now, if you're doing a lot, you can chain piece the whole lot together. But I've only got to the point of doing about 4 at the same time so far. This particular set is going into a quilt for a boy who likes bright colours. Alright, so that's done. Now before we move on, I discovered it's best to lay out these bits again the way they are. So there's our orange point, and we need to have the end of it over here. So we put that there, so you can see that's where we get the interwoven bit from. Here's our green, so it's got to go opposite here. Put that in there. Here's our maroon, put that one not there, because see how that's not matching the yellow? Over here. If it's not looking like it's interwoven, you know you've got something you need to move around. And there's our yellow. And from there, the next step is really easy. Just, if I move this down a bit, so I separate them, you can see now the 4 quarters that you are going to join together. And again, this is just a straight seam. So we're going to turn that over. And I'm going to sew on the side that's got the seam so I can see them. And all your little points are cut off, so it's easy to match the top. Now I do have a little trick that I use when I have a long pointy seam like this. Hopefully you can see. I put the ends together. I don't use a pin because I always end up pricking myself. But now that we have these clips, I really like those. I put one on the end, and that keeps that under control while I worry about the rest of it. And then I don't have so much fiddling around to keep that point straight and putting it back together again at the end. And again, we're going to chain piece, and then we'll have a look again when we put them back. Just make sure that if you're not sure about your 1/4 inch seam, practice a little bit on scrap fabric and make sure that you are getting a good 1/4 inch seam. And if you have to change your machine, write down what measurements, what stitch width, what needle place gives you a good 1/4 inch seam. Now when I first started this one, the hardest part that I found was figuring out the correct orientation of the pieces. So that was why I made the templates, because that helped me keep them the right way up. If you have the die, you need to make sure that your pieces, or your fabric, sorry, all faces up when you cut it, because otherwise you'll have pieces that are back to front. Unless it's batiks like these that I'm using, and it doesn't matter what side you use. Ordinary fabric, sorry, with a front and back that's easily seen, you can't fan fold that fabric on this. There is a good thing about doing a big block like this. It means that you can showcase some of those prettier fabrics and not lose quite so much of what you like about them. That's our points pieced. Now, this is what I do when I'm working out things. I write myself notes on a whiteboard so that I can say to myself, okay, that didn't work, that did work, and I can get rid of the stuff that didn't work. So before I actually wrote out the instructions for you, I figured all this out. So we are still on the first part of the quarter, and we are pressing open those seams still. Now on your sheet over here, if you go through your instructions, you'll find all those pressing instructions just in here, so you'll know what to do. So again, we'll just give them a quick press to set the seams. And then we'll open the seams. Now you could, if you wanted to, press them that way, but it becomes a little bit tricky at the points when you do that. Let me just start at this end. And so I did some one way and some another way until I figured out what I actually preferred, and this is what I found worked the best for a good flat seam. So all of the ones in that half, they're all pressed open. And I'm going to give them another press from that side in a minute with a little bit of steam. And the reason I want a bit of steam is because I have got a couple of crossover seams there, and that will flatten them down. Oops. Got a little bit of a fold there. We'll see what that looks like on the front. Okay, it's good on the front. Now this obviously takes a bit longer than just pressing the seams to the side, but it is worth it. And if you're going to put all that effort into making something beautiful, it's worth doing. Now I'm just going to flip these over, give myself a little bit of steam just to finish them off. And that just helps everything stay flat for the next step. Now this is another step where you might mix up your quarters. But just think about those tail ends, okay? So the points are going into the middle and my dark edges there are going to the outside. Now if I look for the rest of my maroon one, I can put that there. So there it goes, as if it's going underneath over to that one. There's my orange, find the rest of my orange one, and that's going to go there. Looks like it's going under the green and coming out, and then obviously my last one is going to go there, and that's my yellow, which looks like it's going under the maroon and back out there. So now we've got the 4 quarters, and we're going to join these two together, and this time we are going to press the seam towards B because it doesn't have any seams there. So a 1/4 inch seam again, and I'm going to use my little clip on the end again just to hold those points together. Don't stretch this, remember it's a triangle. Check that seam is flat. And just allow that machine to feed it through. And try and make sure you keep that 1/4 inch at the end. So again, I have this thing I like to start with, there's no stitching. And then I'll put my little points together, matching up those cut off ends. Just saves me worrying about whether I've stretched anything. And now we have 2 halves, and we can get rid of our thing. Take off one thing there. So there's my 2 halves, and you can see 1 half has got a seam. Oh, sorry, wrong way around. This one's got a seam on it, and here there's no intersecting seam. So lay it up with that side facing. And what we're going to do this time, again, set the seams, and this time we're just going to fold the seam over into that one there because there's nothing there to create bulk. Just give it a gentle finger press towards the point here because that point is a little bit bulky and we want to make sure it goes the right way just before we get the iron on it. And when you've done that, get the iron on it. And I'll give that a little bit of steam in a minute. Again, finger press this way. Just push that corner down gently. We don't want to stretch it and pull it, but that corner is a little bit bulky, so we want to make sure we get it right. And then we'll have a little bit of steam. Mostly just for that corner. Now it's pretty hard now to get it mixed up. All you've got to do is whip it round and join those two halves together. Now this seam goes that way, this seam goes that way, so you lay them on top of each other, nest those seams. And I did discover I had a little bit of a problem here going all the way along. So I did a thing which is probably a bit of a nuisance, but I did find it helpful. I put a pin in here to keep that centre together for me, and I actually went and sewed it two halves at a time. You don't have to. I don't know why, I just found I felt like I kept missing my centre properly. So I popped it in and did one half so I could check the centre and then fix it straight away if I needed to. I still used my clip on the end. At the moment it's in the centre. I haven't gone right from one end to the other. The end again. It's quite a long bias seam. Saying that, it is a straight seam, so don't feel intimidated. So by doing that, I'll pull it out and I'll show you what I mean. Rather than having that whole seam finished and not knowing whether I had got the centre, which we often think, oh, I think I've got it, and then we find we haven't, I can now open this and check if I've got a good match in the centre, which I do. So all I'm going to do now is flip it round and go back and sew from the centre down the other side. It only takes moments more, and I do like the fact that I'm not worried about that centre, and if I've got to fix it I have to pull out and poke around where I've got the whole seam done rather than just half the seam. Putting my clip in the back again on the end here, just keeping those points of the stars together. So you can see how long that seam is, why you can sometimes stretch too much. Now what we want to do, we'll just set that. Before we open it though, we want to do the thing of what we call swirling the centre. I'm not sure whether you can see this or not because I can't see in my phone, where we've split the stitching here so that one seam goes up and one seam goes down, and it goes towards the triangle that has no seams in it so that we get a nice flat middle. And I'll just show you how we do that. It's really easy. Grab my unpicker. All I want to do is unpick just above, it's probably hard to see on the yellow, just above where the maybe this side you'll see, but I'm going to do it on both sides. But where that seam crosses here, I want to unpick down to that last stitch. And the reason I want to do it is so that I can open those seams like that. So then when I do this, I can have one go up and one come down. And as long as you don't cut into this seam here, you won't have any problem. So now what we're going to do, those seams are going to get pressed towards the side of the triangle that has no seams. So one goes to the yellow that way and one goes to the orange that way. So what I do in the middle is I just give that middle a little bit of a press down, and then I like to go to the other side, and then this one is going this way towards me, the orange, and make sure that point is coming out there, and then the yellow is going away from me towards the phone, and my center is nice and flat now. So check these points that you've pushed your seam across properly. Press the points, press those seams. Now if you're happy, add a bit of steam, add a bit of steam to the middle, and then what you've got there are nice flat points. And if I flip that, maybe you can see the middle, I'm not sure. So you can see I've got little squares in the middle, green, orange, maroon and yellow going there. I think Eleanor Burns calls it swirling or something like that, but it makes that nice and flat. So some seams are open and some seams are pressed to one side, and the very last seam pressed opposite ways. And that is your interwoven star if you feel like trying. It really is a reasonably easy block for a confident beginner. Thank you for watching.